Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. First, thanks for coming to my channel. I appreciate you visiting. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and leaving a comment before you leave, that helps YouTube to promote my channel more effectively. So thank you in advance for that. Today I thought, because I've always liked making stuff with spirals, and spirals have been in jewelry for thousands of years. I've seen ancient jewelry that has lots of spirals in it. And it makes for a really kind of cool look on some pieces. So I thought today we'd do 3 different pieces with spiral motifs in them. I was going to start with a ring, and it's kind of a variation of one I've done over the years. And then we'll do a pair of earrings with some kind of simple spirals that kind of merge right into the ear wire. And following that, we'll do a pendant that's based on a Fibonacci sequence, which can create a nice, cool spiral. So we're going to do that one too. So wanted to, before we get started, thank all of my YouTube subscribers. You guys rock. Thank you for all your support. And my patrons over on Patreon. It's a really nice group of people over there paying for my premium content. So make sure to hit the video description down below to check out the various relevant links. But let's get started on these projects. This is my little design idea book that I sketch things out in. These are available on my merch store if you like this kind of thing. I found that drawing stuff out has really improved my game as far as silversmithing is concerned. Alright, so I'm going to do 3 basic ideas. This is we're going to start with just like a 6-inch piece of 14-gauge square wire, and I'm going to make a couple of sharp bends near the center in opposite directions, and then we're going to spiral it around and turn it into a kind of a cool looking 3-dimensional spiral ring. A lot of times in the past I've done faceted stones with these because it makes for a really stunning kind of free-form looking sort of ring, but you can keep the spirals pretty symmetrical and it looks very, very neat and clean. Today I'm going to put, I picked out a little, just for something different, I picked a little aventurine cabochon. It's probably, I don't know, 4 millimeters or something like that. 4 or 5 millimeters, maybe 5. And I pre-made a bezel for it. If you're interested in learning how to do just a simple bezel for a cabochon, I'll put a link up here for a video for you. But let's start with this piece, then we'll move on to a pair of earrings here. I'm going to use some 14, well, I think it started out as 12 gauge. I actually was making this as a prototype for a different project as a band, but it seemed appropriate for this. I'm gonna take this. It's already got sort of a taper to it from the rolling mill, and I'm just going to file it into more of a smooth taper, make it into a nice spiral that comes to a point kind of, and then flatten the whole thing out a little bit, and hopefully we'll get kind of a nice look to it. We'll see how these turn out. You could just start with 12 gauge and just file it down if you wanted to, either way. I just thought I would make good use of some stuff that was just sitting there. So the other thing is, the third one will be a Fibonacci sequence kind of spiral. If you're not familiar with that, it was a mathematician back in the day, and a Fibonacci sequence is one where the sequence of numbers, each third number is the sum of the 2 previous ones. So 1 plus 1 equals 2, 1 plus 2 equals 3, 2 plus 3 equals 5, 3 plus 5 equals 8, so on and so forth like that. And you can create proportional things from it. 1 plus 1, these are each one-sided, 1-block squares, equals a 2-block square. And then a 2-block square plus a 1-block square equals a 3-block square. So you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's 3 by 3. And then this one would be 2 plus 3. So you got 5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a 5 by 5 square. And then this one was 3, this one was 5, so it's 3 and 5 is 8. So then you got 8 by 8, and so on and so forth. You can keep getting bigger and bigger. So, so I was going to make a pendant that has 2 of these back to back like that. So we'll see if I can do that. Not sure. I'm probably going to use just 18 gauge wire for the spiral. I might use some flattened 14 gauge or something like that. I haven't decided yet. So But let's start with this ring here. I already cut myself a 14 gauge piece of square wire, and I'm going to get that relatively straight, and then we'll find the center point. Let's see if we can't find the center here. So I need it to have a bend going in opposite directions on this piece of square wire, but I don't want it to be huge. I want it to be, I'm going to go about, I'm just going to go a little more than 1/8 on either side, or a little more than 1/16, I should say. That'll get us pretty close. But I need to extend this mark all the way to the opposite side for one of them, so that I can cut them on opposite sides of each other. Okay, and for this, I'm going to actually just cut kind of a 45-degree angle at a 45-degree angle, right on that line on this side. I'm going to go about halfway through, and then we'll flip it over to the other side here. And I want to do the same thing on this one. Okay. Now, I'm going to take these and bend them in opposite directions at a 90-degree angle. Like that for one. For this one, we'll go this way. Keep in mind, when you bend square wire, it tends to try and curve on you or bend, so you got to do some correction as you go sometimes. Keep it staying parallel with each other. So to keep the sides in the same plane, I should say. It'll tend to twist on you. Okay, so once we got it pretty close to a 90-degree jag like that, I'm going to solder this so that it is a permanent bend like that. Okay. So, if you've not done one of my videos before, I use hard silver sheet solder for pretty much everything, and then I use a spray-on flux called My-T-Flux. Another question I get a lot is, which torch do I use? And I'm using a Smith, Silversmith torch. I think they used to call it the Smith Handy Heat torch. It's an acetylene air torch, so there's a B tank of acetylene under the table here. You may notice that I'm doing some pick soldering here. That's one of those skills that I would recommend if you're new at this to kind of start working on learning. For me, it took me from being pretty amateurish to being pretty good at soldering. Okay, so now what I like to do is start spiraling this around that central point. Like this. I get it pretty tight like that. Keep in mind that square wire like this will have a tendency to twist on you, like I was talking about, so you need to stop periodically and correct the way it's moving. Kind of use the leverage by grabbing it further out here to get a nice clean kind of spiral going. Let's try and get them to be facing in opposite directions, kind of the ends. Now we can start thinking about bending it back like this a little bit. Okay, let's see if we can't, I usually, because it's going to be quite a bit harder to bend in here than it is out here, I usually do a little bit of manual bending to get it started before I put it on the mandrel and start trying to shape it that way. I'm doing a little bit of this. It's always going to be a lot stiffer on that part. So you get a little head start on it, it'll help. There's a couple of options here. Okay. Could, if you wanted to, make this an adjustable ring by bypassing these two on the bottom here, or we can pick a particular size we want and we'll go with that length and just solder them together. So most times I usually bypass them because people seem to like the adjustable nature of them, but today I think I'm going to go ahead and solder them together, and we'll see how that comes out. Probably put it on the ring mandrel now and start doing a bit of shaping. Sometimes this might be a little wonky down below here, so I might need to do a little manual shaping for that. Okay, I got it pretty rounded out on the mandrel and kind of relatively symmetrical, I think. So I was wanting this to be mounted right in the center there, like that. So there's likely enough solder there from when I soldered those two pieces, but I'm going to go ahead and just sweat a little bit on the back of here just to make sure there's plenty. I'd rather have, you know, plenty to get it soldered down there nicely and not have to worry about it. If you haven't checked out my Patreon, I have a lot of nice people over there who are kind of creating a cool community where we share ideas and design projects, and you can post the cool things you've made and get lots of people to ooh and ah over them. Or if you just want to see my content minus the ads, there's a $5 a month level on Patreon over there. But I do some exclusive tutorials for the second and up tiers. You wanted a little more individual attention. It's a good way to get it. But if you're interested in that, make sure to visit the video description. That's one of the ways you can support my channel, as well as a number of other ways. You could go to my website and see some of my jewelry for sale, or you could visit my merch store. Got all sorts of fun stuff there. Okay, let's make sure that it gets soldered down. Make sure I got it in the center pretty well. Sometimes my eye tells me otherwise. We're pretty close though, so I'm going to let that pickle, and then we'll start on the earrings. So for the earrings, this part's just going to be a piece of 20 gauge wire that I'll solder onto the back of this. But this is going to just be a couple of pieces of that tapered square rubber. There's one of them. There's the other one. Like I said, you could just use some 12 gauge or some 10 gauge and file it down to a nice taper. I'm going to do, I did some of it with the rolling mill to make it reduced in size one side, but you don't have to do that. So I'm just going to kind of file these until I have a nice taper all the way down. File the second one now. I got these both filed down pretty good. A little bit of a taper. So I think I'm going to use my round nose pliers to start them off. I'm going to try to create a nice spiral. I may have to use multiple pliers because when it starts to get really thick up here, it's going to get quite a bit harder to bend. That's kind of nice. See if I can duplicate that, or at least get a close approximation. These to be relatively similar. I'm going to pound them a little bit too, so that's going to make them a little bit different from each other probably. But these are pretty close. This one can come in just a little bit more. It's not bad. So I'm going to try and flatten them a little bit. Give them some more width, I think. I'm going to try here. I'm going to round these ends a little bit. These are starting to look pretty cool. I think I'm going to do a little pre-polishing on these ones in order to get them mostly polished before we solder on those last little ear wires. Those ear wires are easy to tear off on the polishing machine. So I'm going to try and get it most of the scratches gone before we even apply those. I shine those up a little bit, and I think I'm going to that side looks better. So let's put the ear wires on this side. I think what I'm going to do is let's cut this in half ish. And then I think I'm just going to sweat a little solder onto the end of these. And then I'll just lay them on the backs of these so they're pointed in the right direction. And we'll solder them on, and then we'll let it pickle. Come on, you're crusty. this, most of the mass is in the earring over here, so I'm going to heat this first. Then we'll start heating the ear wire a little bit. Just want to make sure we get a good solid connection there. And then I'm going to throw that on the pickle. Let's do this other one. Okay, we'll let those clean up. Okay, so I did a little thinking off camera, and I think I'm going to do just one side of this instead of two. Getting down to this size of a square and still being able to see what's going on in there is going to be a little bit small. I'm going to do it once and see how it comes out. I don't want to have to commit myself to two of these. Maybe for a future project I'll do a back-to-back one like this, but I think I'm just going to do one. And I may put the bail in the center over here. So I went ahead and I cut, actually first, I took some 14 gauge square wire. I pulled it through a draw plate to make it smaller, so it's more like about 16 gauge maybe. And then I rolled it in the rolling mill to flatten it out. Now you could do that just with a hammer probably if you'd like, if you don't have a rolling mill. But I use that to cut some pieces that are the right length for the outside edge here like this. Okay. The other thing that I did, and if you haven't seen these before, these are really kind of fun and handy, is these are called miter-vise jigs, and they allow you to slide a piece of wire in through these slots that are at 45-degree angles, and then you can file a nice clean 45-degree on these, so I can get these guys to fit together pretty nicely. So I drew this relatively well to scale as far as a Fibonacci sequence spiral. So I'm going to start with the outside and work my way in, which is probably not the logical way to do it, but I think it might be easier to do it that way. So let's do it that way. I got the first 4 outside pieces, and then I'll just keep adding as we go. So let's try that. That's pretty close. So I'm going to solder that one first. Probably close enough. So I need to solder in another piece of this stuff. That would be right there. So one trick you can do when you're trying to get a really precise measurement is, and machinists use this ink that you can paint on, and then make scratches through it so you can see the scratch against the contrast of the ink. So that'll help us to get a pretty precise measurement. here. So we'll try and get that one to The last one here is going to be the hard one because it's so tiny. I may make a T out of 2 pieces here, and then we'll cut it off to fit. Make a mark and then cut this off the right spot. That's looking pretty good. Need to make a little jump ring on here somewhere. Now the trick is going to be doing the wire in there. I have some choices as far as how thick we want it to be. If I want to be able to see the wire in these little tiny ones at all, I'm going to have to use pretty skinny wire. This is 22 gauge, which is pretty thin. I also don't want to melt it. So let's see what we got going on here. That's actually about right. Let's make sure I have some little tiny ones. Can't be using very much solder for this kind of stuff. I think we got soldered in there, so now we got to do another one. By George, I think I got it. Again, to save time on this one, I did a little something in advance. I made a bail for this, which will go through this check ring. It's this sort of bail that's got kind of a little border on the top. If you'd like, I'll put a link up here for my bail video on how to make this kind of bail. I think it comes out pretty good. So we'll just hook that through there. And make sure this is round. You're doing a bail like this, since it's not really attached to the rest of it, it's just looped around something. You don't have to heat the whole thing. In fact, it's counterproductive to heat the whole thing. So, alright, well, I'm going to throw that in the pickle for a while. Let that pickle up with the rest of those. I'll set the stone on the ring, and I'll show you the final result. I apologize for my polishing hair. Alright, here's the three pieces. Here's the little spiral ring. I think that came out pretty cool. I sell quite a few things like this. They seem to be pretty popular. Spirals are always good. There's the earrings. I think those will be super popular. I may make a few more of those. And then here's the Fibonacci spiral. That's about as delicate as I can get with stuff, and that's pretty tiny. So lots of things you could do with that. I thought that came out pretty cool. All right. Well, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. So check out the video description, and we'll see you next time. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed those spiral projects. I know I enjoyed making them. Make sure to hit a few other videos here while you're at my channel. I have tons of content. We're getting close to 200 videos now, which blows me away. I been doing this coming up on 2 years in the fall, I think. And lots of valuable content there. Whether you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced, there should be some stuff that'll suit your needs here. It's a great resource for people just getting started, especially. So if you're more advanced, use it for idea inspiration. There's lots of creative projects here. So make sure to hit the video description. There's relevant links to my channel, including Buy Me a Coffee and my website if you want to see some of my jewelry for sale, and even my merch store. So check it out. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Happy silversmithing.